Greetings YouTube, the author Mark Simmons here, back for the 8th instalment of my readings from the Psionic Powers Trilogy. In this episode I will be reading a snippet from chapter 16 of my debut novel Of the Night. It'll also be the last reading from Of the Night, as next week I'll be moving on to book 2, Purged in Flame. In the story so far, the protagonists and other members of the society have been forced back by the riots into the theatre that they call the Assembly Hall, and they are now under siege, basically. Of the Night is available on Amazon via Poe Boy Publishing. As always, I've not rehearsed this, so we'll see how it goes, and apologies for the misuse of Norwegian, if there's any Norwegians out there. So yeah, this is an extract from chapter 16, which is called Evasion. An empty corridor greeted Whitfield backstage in the ancient theatre. Only light coming from the open door of Nikolai's office lit his path, and swiftly he reached the source. Glancing inside, he found the small room empty. Only the desk lamp showed any indication of recent use. The interior provided no hiding places, and he sure as hell wasn't going to be caught in such an enclosed space. Begrudgingly, he moved on into the darkness. Prior warnings about how it was her home, and she would protect it, came flooding back to him, and he hesitated. All ideas that the Baroness might just be misunderstood were long gone, and all he could think about was what had happened to Nikolai's predecessor. A footfall creaking on wooden floorboards broke his thought patterns and spurred him onwards, quickening his step. A sign hung on the door to his right, and out of the gloom formed the words, "Wardrobe." He glanced back down the corridor. Movement disturbed the distant shadows, so he tried the handle. With a screech of unused hinges, it turned. Causing more noise than he wanted, the door creaked as it opened. He ducked inside and closed it as quietly as possible. Row upon row of costumes lined the vast room. Judging by the layers of dust that coated them, they hadn't been touched since the theatre opened. Outfits of kings, queens, usurpers, princes, princesses, merchants, priests, spirits, fairies, witches, and everything else the bard had created, hung waiting to be used. He weaved his way down the aisles, looking for the darkest corner. Various masks and Shakespearean garments added to his growing fears, and he just hoped that he could find somewhere he wouldn't be found. A soft glow caught his eye as it leaked out from behind the donkey's head of Nick Bottom. Guided by this, he moved towards what he hoped would be a friendly face. Unfortunately, the face of the woman that greeted him was less than welcoming. Eyes wide with terror glared at him from behind her cracked glasses. "Fuck off," she gasped from under her breath as she pushed him away. "Go find your own place to die." Claire stared him down, the threatening intent behind her gaze very real. Whitfield's eyes couldn't help but stray to the screen on her tablet. A new angle of CCTV footage showed the auditorium. The smoking ruins made him believe that the battle had been lost. "Seriously, fuck off." A fist sprung forward and caught him across the jaw, knocking him onto his backside. Whitfield rubbed his jaw whilst holding up his hand in surrender. "I'm gone." He picked himself up and backed away. "But you should turn that thing off. I found you because of it." He turned away from her, walking back along the aisle. Anywhere to hide would do right now. An option presented itself between the long black hooded cowls of the weird sisters hanging in a neat line. The thump of the door being kicked open advertised the arrival of Whitfield's pursuer. Olaf's lack of regard for surprise made the fear creep up his spine as he got down on all fours and folded the black robes up around him. "I know you're in here, fagging." The deep voice bellowed from the doorway, followed by the sound of him trying the light switch. The clicking cut through the tension like a scalpel, but but thankfully the bulbs didn't spark. I can hear your whimpering. Whitfield pushed himself further back into the rack of costumes. No matter how far he pressed himself into the clothing, he still felt exposed. Metal scraped against metal as the blade of an axe dragged across the hanging rails, knocking the hangers against each other and causing the costumes to rattle as they swung against one another. Wood splintered as the axe drove down into something next to the aisle. Wood splintered as the axe drove down into something the next aisle over, and then again as the blade was forcibly removed. The destroyed object crashed to the hard floor, and heavy-booted footsteps got louder as Olaf stomped around the corner at the end of the aisle. After a few steps, he stopped right in front of Whitfield, heart pounding in his chest, his breath stuck in his lungs as through folds of costume he could see the axe tapping against his pursuer's thigh. "Gotcha!" the man exclaimed, and Whitfield braced himself for the impending attack. So there you go. Last one of book one. As always, the links to the book on Amazon are available in the description, as are my Facebook author page, my Instagram page, my Twitter page. Poe Boy Publishing of the Night available. And as I said earlier, next week I will be starting book 2, Purged in Flame, which has only just recently become available on Amazon. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.